All praise to the Most High. Shabbat Shalom for those of you online. Sorry for the wait. Some technical difficulties going on. We were setting up the PowerPoint presentation. To this evening's lesson is going to be conducted by Brother and Officer Wildorf, as well as Brother and Officer Greg, all right? All right, so without further ado, let's give the Most High a round of applause.
All right, praise the Most High. I just want to say that, it's really a pleasure to be in front of saints, body, brothers and sisters, to give me this lesson. First off, I'd like to also thank the Most High for giving us life and give us understanding and wisdom. The Most High first, in anything that we do. I'd like to give him praises for that. Secondly, I'd like to give praises to our Elder Gabar, who's been a good teacher to us as officers. And, we lift him up highly because of his way of teaching and also inspiring us, including myself. Also, I'd like to also thank Officer Hazak and Officer Zachariah for holding down Brooklyn, okay, and, also inspiring me and watching how they teach. And I'd like to thank also Officer Greg, who came all the way down here to read for me, okay? Oh, grab the mic. Oh, I forgot we're on camera. Okay. I'd like to thank Officer Greg for coming down to read for me. And just to let you know, the scripture says we all know in parts. So the parts that I'm going to be expressing today comes from conversation with you, different members of the body. Listening to everyone, understanding where they are spiritually, and also where I am spiritually. So I decided to try to put, this lesson together. Now, eventually, before, I had a different lesson prepared, but being that we're going into the Feast of Dedication, I started working on something called Between Testaments. And what it is, Between Testament is, you know how in the scripture you have the ending of the Old Testament, the book of Malachi. And then you have the beginning of the New Testament, the book of Matthew. But then, what was going on between them? Okay? A lot of theologians says that between those two was a period of quiet or no spiritual, no presence of the Most High. But we don't know what that means. But we have the Apocrypha, right? That will give us more details of what went on between the Testament. Now, the time period between the Old Testament and the New Testament is about 500 to 300 years. So what's been going on in Jerusalem during that period of time? Because we already know that we went to captivity during the Persian captivity when it ended. And then next thing you know, when we go into the book of Matthew, Yeshua is in the scene under Roman captivity. So what happened between then? Where was Israel between then? What happened to the temple? So we're going to go into that today. And this is only part one, okay, of the lesson. And we're going to start. Now, how many people have their Apocrypha with them? Because you're going to need it. All right, good. Okay. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. Okay, then I read. All right, cool. I was going to use mine. So everybody got their Apocrypha with them. All right. Also, we're going to go into a few clips from the Josephus. How many people have a Josephus at home? Okay. Anybody got Josephus with them? Greg, you got your Josephus? Okay, now whoever don't have a Josephus, you should try to get this book. Because the book of Josephus goes into a little more details of what had occurred in a lot of events during the scriptures. And we're going to also show you an example of it. Okay? But now we're going to begin. We're going to go to the book of, let me see. To the book of Deuteronomy 28, the prophecy. Now, we all know about Deuteronomy 28, that the Most High told Moses what would happen to Israel if they do what? Say it again? Not follow commandment, being disobedient. Okay? Let's go.
All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verses 47 to 48. Because thou servest not the Lord thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until ye have been destroyed.
Okay, so we know this. If you go against the Most High commandment, what will happen? He will send our enemies to put a yoke on our neck. Okay? He will send our enemies to put us in captivity. Because of what? Our disobedience again. Okay? Next one.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, 49 to 50. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
A nation whose tongue you shall not understand. Okay? Also, it mentioned as the earth, the eagle flieth. Okay? We're going to go into that. What nation represents the eagle? Okay, this is a prophecy in Deuteronomy 28 that the Most High warned us about. Continue.
Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, or nor shall shew favor to the young.
Okay, so that means that this nation, they're not going to care about the elderly, how old you are. They're not going to even care about the young people. This nation, with a fierce countenance, that means that this nation don't care what they do, how they do it to you. All it's about is how they rule over you. We're going to go into that. I'm going to show you the nations. So, I got these two pictures here representing these two nations that represents the eagle as a symbol, just to prove who they are. You can read the first paragraph from the bottom. I know it's hard to read. Got it?
The eagle is a symbol for power, action, speed, and perception. It has powers of intuition, creativity, and can balance power with grace. All these because the eagle has sharp vision, which gives it the ability to see hidden truths and spiritual principles. Around the world, the eagle has been adopted as an emblem.
Okay, around the world, the eagle represents power. Okay, speed, perception. So that means these other nations going to come with those characteristics. Read the next one about Rome.
Okay. This painting represents a Roman eagle, also called the Aquila. The eagle, Aquila, was a bird of Jupiter. In ancient times, the eagle was a symbol of strength and courage and immortality. The eagle was believed to be the king of the birds that could ascend above the storm and become the messenger of the gods. According to ancient mythology, the eagle would carry the soul into the presence of the gods, Zeus to the Greeks, Jupiter to the Roman, and Odin to the tribes of Germania.
You see that? We're talking about Zeus to the Greeks and the Roman. They use pagan to represent their gods, who they are. They use pagans, another nation. Most High did not give this to Israel. All right. We'll go to Daniel 7. This is when Daniel had the vision about the nations again. Go ahead, read.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
Now, a lot of us went through the academy, and we watched Elder Bacard did the lesson about the the beasts in different nations. And we all know this represents who? Alexander the Greek, because of the leopard. Okay? But now, if you go to Daniel 8, this took me by surprise. Here's another metaphor about Alexander the Greek. Read.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 3 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came at last.
Okay, so we're talking about a ram with two horns. Okay, what does that mean, a ram? Go ahead.
I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great.
Okay, so this ram did according to his will and became great. Okay? It's not talking about a regular animal. All right? Uh-huh.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 5 to 6. And as I was considering, behold, and a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
Okay, so now, talk about a ram, but now here comes this goat. What does that mean? Who's the goat? Go ahead.
And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river.
So he came to the ram that had 2 horns, this goat. Mm-hmm.
And ran unto him in the fury of his power. Daniel 8, verse 7. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him.
So this goat broke the ram 2 horns, devoured him. So that ram lost his power. Continue.
And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
So that was it. So once he stamped on that ram was finished. His time was over.
Right.
So who's representing the goat? Who's representing the ram? The scripture will tell you. Read.
This is the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 20 to 22. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia.
Okay, so the ram representing Persian captivity. Okay, remember, Israel was under Persian captivity for about 245 years. Even though Persia allowed Israel to go back on their land and follow their Most High laws and rebuild the temple, but we were still under their captivity. We still was paying taxes to them. Okay, they still was ruling us. But their time was up. Another nation had to come take over them in order to put us underneath them. Okay? Just a back-to-back captivity. No breaks. Go ahead, read.
Verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
See, the goat was the king of Grecia, the Greek captivity. Continue.
And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. 22. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power.
Okay, he said 4 kingdoms will stay. 4 kingdoms stood out of that nation. So the Grecian is coming to take over. But after there's 4 nations that's going to be underneath them. And I'm going to tell you, this nation did wickedest thing than what Alexander the Greek did. Okay. Alex is supposed to represent Alexander the Greek. Greek invasion. Alexander the Greek came to the northern kingdom at that time during 336 BC. Okay? One of the reasons why it's important to understand this timeline is because sometimes we got to get into the mindset of what had occurred before Christ, before the book of Matthew. Okay? Because him coming into Jerusalem had changed almost the face of Jerusalem, the face of Israel, to the point where people even started changing their names. Okay? We don't go into that. All right, we're going to go into the book of Maccabees.
This
The
is in your,
Apocrypha.
all right. Give you time to get your Apocrypha. Get into your Apocrypha. Let me know when you're ready, family.
Say come when you're there.
Okay?
Yeah, the book of Maccabees. Now, I just want to explain something, too, about the book of Maccabees. The book of Maccabees is a very political book. If you're into politics, then you could read this book and dive into it. But you also got to remember that it's not put in a chronological order. Okay? You have to skip around. Like, if you see a character in the book of Maccabees, then you have to search that character in First Maccabees and Second Maccabees to get an understanding of that character. Okay? So it's not going to go in chronological order. But what I'm going to be dealing with today is the priesthood within the book of Maccabees. But we'll get to that. Well, go ahead.
This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verses 1 to 2. And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetam, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth.
Okay, so we just read that in the book of Daniel. All right, the book of Maccabees is confirming Alexander the Greek invasion coming in to Jerusalem, making many strongholds. Okay? It's confirmation. Let's get a little bit about Alexander the Greek. Now, you go into this book, the Josephus, book 11, chapter 8, verse 4 and 6. Josephus gave a little bit more detail about when Alexander the Greek came into Jerusalem. How did he treat us? Okay? Because we may have this perception about him, but I was so surprised of what the Josephus said about Alexander the Greek. All right? Go ahead, Group.
Okay, this is the book of Josephus, book 11, chapter 8, verses 4 to 6. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians.
Okay, that's what we read about, the ram and the goat. Another confirmation by the Josephus. Go ahead.
He supposed that he himself was the person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. But the next day he called them to him and directed them to ask what favors they pleased of him.
Okay, so he came into Jerusalem, taking power, but then at the same time, Alexander sort of respected people's religious rights. So he asked, what kind of favor can I give to please you, make you happy? Go ahead.
Whereupon the high priest desired that they might enjoy the laws of their forefathers.
So the high priest said, listen, we want to continue doing the laws of our forefathers. You know, you guys coming in, you know, that's part of the Most High prophecy, but, you know, let us serve our Most High God and continue doing our laws. Give us that. Continue.
And might pay no tribute on the 7th year.
And they're paying no tribute. Listen, our law is, you know, 7th year, we got a break, so you got to give us some grace from paying you taxes and everything like that. That's what we asked you for. Go ahead.
He granted all they desired.
And he gave it to them. Continue.
And when they entreated him that he would permit the Jews in Babylon and Media to enjoy their own laws also, he willingly promised to do hereafter what they desired.
Okay, so he gave them what they desired. But then he asked for something in return. Sure, I'm going to give you guys what you desire. So there's a catch to what he's giving us. Read.
And when he said to the multitude, and if any of them would enlist themselves in his army, on this condition, that they should continue under the laws of their forefathers and live according to them, he was willing to take them with him. Many were ready to accompany him in his wars.
Now here's the return. He's saying that, you know what, I'm going to give what you want, but enlist underneath my army. That's a contradiction, though. That's a trickery. Because now you want me to be under your nation to fight your wars, but follow my laws? No, that don't make no sense. But Israel got tricked and allowed them to fall for it. Now you're in a situation where now you're going to go to war for another nation, and then you're going to be breaking the Most High law anyway. So you already went into error. Who's going to suffer for that? And that's why we're in captivity here. See that? Tricked us. But, he wasn't a bad guy. But he had a lot of deception in him too, because of that. Okay? Continue.
This is Alexander's servants, 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 4 to 6.
Now, when I say servant, we're talking about the foreign nation now. Okay? Who they are. Go ahead.
And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him.
Mm-hmm.
And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
All right, so Alexander, got sick. He died, but he had 4 of his brethren where he rose up from when he was young, and he started dividing the land, the nations which he conquered, right? We're going to go into who they are, and we're going to deal with one specific one. And the Josephus again. We're going to find out who they are. Because one thing about the Josephus, during his time was a lot more closer than the time when, that we are. So, a lot of his writing is really, really on point. Go ahead.
This is the book of Josephus, book 12, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to start from the line?
Yeah, you can start from now.
Okay. Now when Alexander, king of Macedonia, had put an end to the dominion of the Persians, and had settled the affairs in Judea after the before-mentioned manner, he ended his life. And as his government fell among them, Antigonus obtained Asia, Seleucus, Babylon, and for the other nations here there was there. Lysimachus governed the Hellespont, and Cassander possessed Macedonia, as Ptolemy the son of Lagus seized upon Egypt. And while these princes ambitiously strove once against another, every one for his own principality, it came to pass that there were continual wars, and those lasting wars too.
Okay, so these were the people that was underneath Alexander. Okay, but we're going to deal with Seleucus, because Seleucus took over Israel and parts of Asia Minor, okay, for his captive. Okay, so we're going to deal with Seleucus and who came after Seleucus and what the scripture says about him. Go back Maccabees 1 and 8.
This is Maccabee and evil in Jerusalem, 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves.
So that means that when he was dead, they was bearing rule. They was doing what they needed to do. They didn't go into the temple. They didn't defile the temple. They were behaving themselves. But then after he died, go ahead.
So did their sons after them many years.
Okay, after he died, they went and put crowns upon their heads. Now they're bigging themselves up now. Okay, they're putting crowns. Their sons also, they were given crowns. Their sons were not even in a position yet, they was getting crowns. You believe that? Go ahead.
And evils were multiplied in the earth.
So evils was multiplying the earth now. Now these guys create a whole bunch of evil amongst the whole state of Jerusalem, Israel, Asia Minor. And we're going to go find what sort of evilness that they multiply. Go ahead.
And there came out of them a wicked root.
Wicked root. Go ahead.
Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Okay, now, there's the king Antiochus, and there's his son. His son was in Rome as captive. But then when he came out, he ruled for how long?
He reigned in the 137th year.
So he reigned in 137th year between the time of 330 BC and during the time before the Romans came. So that was a long time for them to be in Jerusalem. Okay? And they said the evil. Go ahead. Now, we're going to deal about the wicked man of Israel. I know a lot of you guys read that part, that there was some wicked men in Israel when the Greeks came. We're going to find out who were the wicked men of Israel. Go ahead.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 11 to 12. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well.
So now there was some wicked men out of Israel say, yo, you know what? Since they came, we've been having a lot of sorrow. So that means they was there for a while. It's not like they came one day, Greeks came one day, and everything went, out of order. But this took some time. So these wicked men in Israel went and made a covenant with them. How? Who were they? Can anybody take a guess? Pharisees, the Levites. Okay. I'm going to find out. That's good. Go ahead.
This is First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 13 to 15. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
So you see what happened? So now these wicked men influence other people to go to the king, which was Seleucus, okay, to start building places for exercise, a custom that's coming out from the Greeks. Okay? Go ahead.
And made themselves uncircumcised.
And now they start making themselves uncircumcised. Now they're going to cut out circumcision. Go ahead.
And forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
Okay, and forsook the holy covenant. That means they were willing to put the laws down. Okay, somebody is leading them to go and follow the heathens to put away the laws. And it's an Israelite. Okay? And, okay, I'm going to get to this. So who are these men? The corruption of the priesthood. Okay? Because the priesthood were the leaders of Israel at that time. Because Israel didn't really have no king. How about prophet? During the Maccabees, did Israel have a prophet? I didn't see any prophet. Somebody saw any prophet during Maccabees, let me know. But I was searching, see, where's the prophet? Who did they have? They only had the priesthood, the high priest. But why wasn't there no prophet? Why was the Most High silent? The Most High was silent. The Most High wasn't giving anybody any vision. That's one of the reasons why, again, theologians say there's no spirit. The Apocrypha is not spiritually inspired. But they're wrong. We show it. But the corruption of the priesthood. Now we're going to 2 Maccabees 3 to 1. 1 to 2.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well, because of the godliness of Onias, the high priest, and his hatred of wickedness.
So now, when the Greeks came, Onias was the high priest of Israel. He was against wickedness. He was for the law. Okay? And now I'm thinking, he probably was one of the high priests that told Alexander, listen, let us do our laws. Let us serve the Most High. Okay? Give us that. Onias. Go ahead.
It came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts.
Now, the king they're talking about is still Seleucus, right? Yeah, that king. Not Antiochus. We're going to get to him. I don't want you guys to get lost of which king. When they mention the king, Seleucus was the king at that time. Antiochus was underneath him. Okay? Oh, it even said it right here. Go ahead, read 3. Yeah, 3.
2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 3. And so much that Seleucus of Asia of his own revenues be all the costs belonging to the service of the sacrifices.
Okay? So that's the king we're dealing with. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 4 to 6. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin,
Benjamin? Go ahead.
who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city.
Look at that. Benjamin, fall out with the high priest, boy. Benjamin, we always get involved in some type of treachery and deceptions. And I'm Benjamin too, so I know.
Not all the time.
But he was a governor of the temple. Doesn't mean that he was a priest. He was a governor. So he had specific duties as a governor of the temple. So go ahead, he fell out.
And when he could not overcome Onias, he scat him to Apollonius.
Okay, Apollonius is another general of the Greek. So when he couldn't overcome Onias, so what he went to do? He went to make a covenant with a Grecian general to get him on his side. Go ahead.
Apollonius, the son of Troeses, who then was governor of the Cilicia and of Phoenice.
Okay, now these are different cities in Israel. Because when they came, they changed the names of the city. So now, we don't see names like Galilee or Shechem or Jerusalem. You're seeing all these Grecian names. So this is what was occurring. So, we got to remember, too, the children that was being born, when they walk into the street, they just know, I'm in the city of Cilicia or Phineas. But they have to learn about the original cities from the book, from the scriptures, from the law. Go ahead. And what did he do?
And told him that the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money.
You see that? So he's telling the general how much money Jerusalem have. He's selling us out. Benjamin. Okay? Trying to get his way. Go ahead.
So that the multitude of their riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring all into the king's hand.
Okay. Now, when it's saying that, if I'm not mistaken, where a lot of riches come from, not pertaining to the account of the sacrifices, going back to the kings, and when I deal with the kings another time, we have to understand that Israel would give, alms and offering for the widow, and also for, for just, their percentage to the temple. So the priest will collect all the riches, all the gold. So it's like the temple, the temple is almost like a bank. Okay? So here comes Simeon telling him all the money we have. Okay? Now, the rest, I just put it down here, 7 to 11 is all political. It's going to go into more detail. So, if you have time, if you want to read the politics of it, if you're into politics, then you will go continue to read that, because then it talks about different transactions with different countries. But, I want to stay focused on what's going on with the priesthood. All right? Read.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 1 to 2. Mm-hmm. This Simon now, of whom we spake afore,
okay.
having been a betrayer of the money and of his country, slandered Onias.
Now he's slandering Onias' name. He's going out to the public, telling him, oh, he's wicked, he's embezzling the money and everything, but it's him that's doing it. Go ahead.
As if he had terrified Heliodorus and been the worker of these evils.
Mm-hmm.
Thus was he bold to call him a traitor, that had deserved well of the city and tendered his own nation, and was so zealous of the laws.
Mm-hmm.
Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 3 to 5. But when their hatred went so far that by one of Simon's faction murders were committed.
So his hatred started going so far. Now he got the spirit of hatred coming in him now. So he was plotting murders, committing murders. Simon, the Benjamite, the governor. Okay? He wasn't the only one, though. We're going to go into that. Go ahead.
Ananias, seeing the danger of this contention, and that Apollonius, as being the governor of Celesyria, and Phineas did rage and increase Simon's malice.
So now Ananias is seeing the danger. Now he feel like, yo, his life is in danger. You got two people cahooting to take my life. He's the high priest from the lineage of Aaron, Eleazar, which really his rightful position. Go ahead.
He went to the king, not to be an accuser of his countrymen, but seeking the good of all, both public and private.
So Ananias went to the king. He went to King Seleucus, so he could get the king to favor him. Say, listen, man, these people are trying to defile my name and, portray me as some kind of wicked person. I need your help. And what happened?
Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 6 to 8. For he saw that it was impossible that the state should continue quiet, and Simon leave his folly, unless the king did overlook thereunto.
Mm-hmm.
But after the death of Seleucus,
Now Seleucus died. Go ahead.
when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Ananias, labored on the hand to be high priest.
Okay, now Seleucus died. Now Antiochus, Epiphany, took over. Now Onias have another brother, Jason. The brother of Onias labored under him to be a high priest. So what he do now? He's going to go sell his brother out to Antiochus, his own brother. It's the priesthood. Go ahead.
Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents.
Now he's going into details how much we got, how much he's offering. First, Simon did it. Now, Onias' brother doing it. So what does Onias do now? You got everybody around you trying to take over your spot. Read.
Second Maccabees chapter 4, 9 to 10. Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise.
Okay, there you go. So he'll give more money. If you give him the license, let me set up the place of exercise where people could start doing sports and building up stadiums and things like that. Go ahead.
And for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochus.
So he's wanting to do all of this just to be the new high priest. Turn our people into the ways and the custom of the heathen. An Israelite. Go ahead.
Which when the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to Greekish fashion.
Now the king that we're talking about is Antiochus now. I'll show you why. Go ahead.
Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 12 to 13. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of Greek fashions, an increase of heathenish manners, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest.
Okay, he still wasn't high priest though, Jason. He was still trying to campaign to be the high priest, even though he went and started building the youth center of exercise, but he was not high priest yet.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4, 14 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
That the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple.
Now, the rest of the priests, all this stuff is going on. You know, you're building stadiums, you're corrupting the priesthood. The rest of the priests don't feel motivated to do any sacrifices no more. Why should they? The place is defiled. So they became a stumbling block to the rest of the priests. Go ahead.
And neglecting the sacrifices.
Sacrifices. Mm-hmm.
Hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise. After the name of discus called them forth. The game of discus called them forth. Not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of all the Grecians best of all.
So now they're getting the people to like everything about the Grecian. This is happening in Jerusalem. Okay? So we have wicked men bring a lot of our people into the heathen customs. Over what? Filthy lucre. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 16 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
By reason whereof sore calamity came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they follow so earnestly, and unto whom they desire to be like in all things.
Now they're designed to be like them in all things. Now, if the adults and the elderly was doing that, could you imagine what the kids would begin to see? Sometimes we got to put our mind in those perspectives. The younger children are starting to learn the custom ways, the Greek custom ways. Go ahead.
For it is not a light thing to do wickedly against the laws of the Most High, but the time following shall declare these things.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Brothers' betrayal. 2 Maccabees chapter 4.
Okay, the reason I said brothers' betrayal, we've seen two brothers, or we've seen one main brother and another brother, Israelite, betrayal. Now you're going to see another one. Go ahead.
It's the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 23 to 24. 3 years afterward, Jason sent Menelaus.
Now, Jason sent Menelaus. Who's that? Go ahead.
The aforesaid Simon's brother, to bear the money unto the king and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters.
Okay, so now Jason is sending his brother, Menelaus, to go to the king to bring the king some money, right? To deal with some unnecessary matters, to deal with certain things. You tell my brother, all right, you know what, go take it to King Antiochus, this amount of money. So then what does he do? Go ahead.
But he being brought to the presence of the king.
Now once he came to the presence of the king,
when he had magnified him for the glorious appearance of his power, got the priesthood to himself.
See that? Menelaus over here, bigging himself up, using the money, showing his own glory, went after what? The priesthood. Go ahead.
Offering more than Jason by 300 talents of silver.
See, offering more than Jason. So you got Jason, first you have Onias, who was the original priest. Then you have his brother Jason, who labored and tried to take the priesthood from him. Then you have Menelaus, another brother. You see his name, Menelaus. It's not an Israelite name. So he changed his name. They all changed his name. We're going to go to it. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 25-26. So he came with the king's mandate, bringing nothing worthy the high priesthood, but having the fury of a cruel tyrant and the rage of
so he was more wicked than the rest of them. Go ahead.
And the rage of a savage beast.
See, probably had a hot temper, get mad all the time. Could imagine the yoke he was putting under people's neck being a high priest. This is a high priest position. Go ahead.
Then Jason, who had undermined his own brother, being undermined by another, was compelled to flee into the country of the Ammonites.
Jason had to leave because his brother was more wicked than him. So he had to go. How you going to be afraid of your own brother? So this is the impact of that captivity that befell us. Go ahead. So Menelius.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 27 and 28. So Menelaus got the principality, but as for the money that he had promised unto the king, he took no good order for it, albeit Sostratus, the ruler of the castle, required it.
So Menelius got the principality. Now he got the position of power. He was on top of the food chain. And now he was in cahoots with Sostratus, where they were supposed to bring the money to the king, but they didn't. He was kind of holding back. Go ahead.
For unto him appertained the gathering of the customs, wherefore they were both called before the king.
But the king still called him. Listen, you guys really need to come over and talk to me because y'all didn't bring me the money. So they still had to go see the king. Going back to Josephus to find out Jason, original name, and Onias. Start here where it says but.
All right. Onias, Jason, and Onias the fourth. Josephus, the book of Josephus, book 12, chapter 5, verse 1. But this Jason, who was a brother of Onias.
It's not Jason.
Oh, yeah. But this Jesus, who was a brother of Onias.
See the name? It's Jesus. Go ahead.
Was deprived of the high priesthood by the king, who was angry with him and gave it to his younger brother.
Now, it says who was the brother of Onias was deprived. Onias was the first high priest, okay, and deprived of the high priesthood by the king, who was angry, go ahead, with him.
Who was angry with him and gave it to his younger brother.
Gave it to his younger brother.
Whose name also was Onias.
So there was two brothers named Onias. Ain't that something? That's how Israel used to do. We'll be giving, brothers the same name. Okay? So there's three of them, right? Mm-hmm. So we know Jason labored to take the priesthoods from the first Onias. Now, here's a third Onias. Continue.
For Simon had these three sons.
Simon was their father.
To each of which the priesthood came. As we have already informed the reader, this Jesus changed his name to Jason.
So that's Jason.
Right.
So we know this Jason. Go ahead.
But Onias was called Meneclas.
That's Menelius.
Menelius.
Okay? So it's Onias. Because we mentioned before, Menelius was more what? The anger one, the more wickedest one. That's Onias, one of the brothers. He changed his name. Everybody changed their names. Go ahead.
Now, as a former high priest, Jesus raised a rebellion against Menelius, who was ordained after him. The multitude were divided between them both, and the sons of Tobias took the part of Menelius.
So there was a group that was the sons of Tobias, not Tobias from Tobit. This is, you know how we do. We use the same name. Another Tobias for Menelius. Go ahead.
But the greater part of the people assisted Jason.
But Jason had another group that was trying to, keep him in.
And by that means, Menelius and the sons of Tobias were distressed and retired to Antiochus.
So they went to Antiochus. So they had to go to Antiochus because now Jason had able to get other groups to campaign and rally behind him. And his Jason group was a lot more bigger than theirs. So he said, you know what? Let's go to Antiochus. Let's bring that money that we owe him. Let's go face him. Go ahead.
And informed him that they were desirous to leave the laws of their country and the Jewish way of life.
So Menelius said that, listen, we have desired to leave the laws of this country. The Jews, the life of the Jews. We desire to do that. So help us. We'll give up the laws. We'll uncircumcise ourselves. I don't know how they're going to do it, but, they said they're going to do it. Go ahead.
And the Jewish way of living according to them, and to follow the king's laws and the Grecian way of living.
So they want to follow his law, their way of living. This is the priesthood, our leaders. Go ahead.
Thus, they desired his permission to build a gymnasium at Jerusalem.
Now they're going to build a gymnasium. They started, they're going to finish it. Go ahead.
And when he had given them leave, they also hid the circumcision of their genitals.
Yeah, how they do that? See that? They were hiding their circumcision. If they could turn back on circumcised, they would. This is the priesthood. You think the Most High was around? Go ahead.
And even when they were naked, they might appear to be Greeks. Accordingly, they left all the customs that belonged to their own country and imitated the practices of the other nations.
Okay, that's what they decided to do. Okay, this is the priesthood. And the reason I keep saying that is because, well, that's in another series, dealing with the Romans, but we'll continue. More wickedness was going on. Go ahead.
It's the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 50. And so through the covetousness of them that were power, Menelaus remained still in authority, increasing in malice and being a great traitor to the citizens.
So, it just came to my mind that sometimes, Israel, we are like sheep. We're so easily led, so much that a heathen nation could use our own people to lead us astray. You know what I mean? You got to ask yourself, why do Israelites like to follow the heathen nation? Sometimes it's not they want to follow the heathen nation. Sometimes it's our own people that's selling us out and making us lead after the other nations. Because if an Israelite see another Israelite following the heathen nation, you're going to do what? Okay, I'm going to follow him because, he's Israel, so he's down with him. Yeah. And the heathen got money. Say, I got land, I got places, I'm going to hook you up. Just get the rest of them to follow you, and you know what I mean? And you'll be good. I'm going to take care of you. And that still goes on today. So we got to be careful of that. Because it would be really ignorant of us to just decide to follow a heathen nation just like that. Somebody had to trick us. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after, this king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High.
Now the Greeks going and acting Greeks, getting their elders to go to Jerusalem and tell, listen, get the rest of the people to depart from the laws. So it was just nonstop. This was going on in Israel, in Jerusalem, during the quiet years, as they call it, between the 500 years, quiet years. No, it wasn't quiet. Go ahead.
It's the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 2 to 4. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it into the temple of Jupiter, Olympius.
Now look what they're doing to the temple of Jerusalem. They're changing its name. They're putting Jupiter, Olympius. Go ahead. Grecian names. Go ahead.
And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as it did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots.
Okay, they even have prostitution inside the temple.
Wickedness.
The Gentiles was bringing all of that inside there. Go ahead.
And had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places.
In certain parts of the temple, the priests and the heathens was involved. Go ahead.
And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful.
Things were not lawful into the temple. So, thank goodness the Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. Okay? Thanks for the prophet Jeremiah. He went and hid the Ark of the Covenant before Babylon came in because he knew it was coming. Go ahead.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 5 to 7. Mm-hmm. The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbidded. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
All in the temple, you couldn't even keep the Sabbath days. They had pigs, all types of unlawful things inside this temple. That's it. The temple was finished. It was stained. Go ahead.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of the Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus, carrying ivy.
Bacchus. That's a form of what you call it? A party.
Carnival.
Yeah, a carnival. That's where we get that. Carnival time.
Bacchanal.
Bacchanal time. See, that's close to Bacchus. That's where we get that from. And you know what goes on at Bacchanal time? A lot of dancing, a lot of gyrating, all of that that's going on. Mm-hmm. They were doing that in the temple on the king's birthday. Well, they said every month? The king had a birthday every month?
Nah, he probably, yeah. He probably
I'm about to say, man.
Yeah.
It look like it did say that. We got to go back on that. Okay, go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 8 to 9. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices.
Now, since Jerusalem was tainted, since the temple was defiled, now they're going to go after all the cities in Jerusalem. In Israel, not just Jerusalem, all the cities. Everyone going to have to partake of putting down the laws, partake in the heathen fashion. Everybody. Okay? Go ahead.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death.
Now, if you don't do what we tell you, you're going to be put to death. So now you're going to figure out who laws you're going to follow now. You break the Most High law, you're going to be put to death. They're saying you don't follow our law, you're going to be put to death. What do you choose? Go ahead.
Then might a man have seen the present misery. The misery continue all through this chapter.
So if you continue reading all the way down chapter 6, you're going to see misery that was going on in Jerusalem. Okay, that's the mindset before Christ. So that's why sometimes when you read in the New Testament, you see all these different names, Grecian names. Timotheus, Cornelius, what's the name? Read some more of these Grecian names in the New Testament. Ananias, Barnabas, all the is. Okay? You know that's Greek. Israelite with these names. Jesus. And this misery continued. Now, this part right here, you know, I'm sure a lot of people went and read it, but it's always good to go back into this. You know, this is the daughter of Zion and meant to put her 7 sons. You know, to me it's a very touching, but we're going to go through it a bit. Okay? Go ahead. Because this is during the time of more misery. So if you don't follow laws, you're going to die. Here's an example, more details. This is 2 Maccabees.
Okay, this is 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1 to 2. It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips.
So now you have a mother and her 7 sons taken, being forced to partake in swine flesh. Okay, they tied them up, have a whip ready for them. Because what? They resisted. And the king they're talking about is Antiochus. Mm-hmm. Antiochus is like, what? We got a mother and 7 sons? I got to come down there and see who they are. That's how strong their resistance was. You brought the king down to deal with you. Go ahead.
But one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask of
hold on, where you at? Let me go back. Oh, okay. Let's my bad. Go ahead.
But one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die, rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers.
So that's one of them. He's ready to die than to break the law of our forefathers. That's how strong he was into the law. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 3 to 4. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot.
Oh, so now he's getting some other supplies that's just going to really put torture on him. Cauldrons. Who know what cauldron is? Right. It's a big, big pot. Boiling pot. This is what's happening to our people during that time. Go ahead.
Which forthwith being heated,
Whew.
he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first.
So now what do they do with the first one that spoke? Cut his tongue. Okay. Go ahead.
And to cut the utmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on.
Right. So his family looking on. He's willing to go through that because he what? He wanted to safeguard the law. That means their faith was strong. So that's the importance of knowing the law, because it really strengthens your faith. You know, that's why Paul says that. You know, Christ said, man, your faith got to be strong. Know the law. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 5. Now when he was thus maimed in all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire, and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with a mother to die manfully, saying thus.
See that? So he had to take like a man. They throw him in there. I mean, he was just cooking in front of him. Wickedness. And this is Antiochus doing. Now, when the whole community heard all of this, that survived this, what do you think it was in their mindset? Can you imagine the amount of people that came out of this with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, all types of mental illnesses? We got to remember these things occurred. You're seeing your family get burnt alive, cut, killed in front of you. What's it going to do to your mind? Who you going to have issue with when you come out of this? You're going to have issue with your brothers because they're the one who caused this to happen. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 6 to 7. The Lord power looketh upon us, and in truth had comfort in us, as Moses in his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, and he shall be comforted in his servants. So when the first was dead after this number, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. And when they had pulled off the skin of his head with the hair, they asked him, wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body?
So look at the second one came. They pulled the skin off his scalp, and they asked him, will he eat? I mean, I'm basically almost dead now. You pulled the scalp of my hair, but he still did not bow down to them. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 8 to 9. But he answered in his own language and said,
in his own Hebrew language. He didn't want the king to hear what he was saying. Go ahead.
No. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did.
So now he got the next torment.
And
Burnt. Go ahead.
And when he was at the last gasp, he said, thou like a fury takest up us out of this present life, but the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for his laws unto everlasting life.
Now, which king of this world he's talking about? Exactly. See that? Christ ain't even come yet. He knew of Christ. That's how strong his faith was. For the king not to come yet, but he know that if he died, he will be with the king. Where did he learn all that from? From the law. From the prophets. From staying in this book. Because in this book, it's going to help you be resilient and stay steadfast to the law. So that's what they're showing you, regardless. And these young Israelites were in this book. How do you know about Christ? And they know about resurrection, everlasting life. So that wasn't no new concept. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 10 to 12. After him was the third made a mocking stock. And when he was required, he put out his tongue, and that right soon, holding forth his hand manfully.
He just said, you know what, here, take my hands. I'm going to cut my tongue, take my hands. Let's get this over with. There's just too much torture watching his other family, so let's just get it over with. This is what we was going through. This is why they kept quiet. That's why they kept the Apocrypha out this book, because they don't want us to know all of this.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And said courageously, these I had from heaven, and for his laws I despised them, and from him I hope to receive them again.
So you know when you go back to the Most High, he's going to get it all back.
Great.
Because the Most High that gave it to him, not you. So take it. Go ahead.
Insomuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he had nothing regarded the pains.
And they laughed. I thought it was a joke. That's how wicked they are. Go ahead. Wait.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 13 to 15. Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fort in like manner.
Wait, where you at? Let me go back. Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah, didn't we just read that?
No, this is a new slide.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
Verse 14. And so when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good, being put to death by men, to look for hope from the Most High, to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt know resurrection to life.
So he said, I'm going to be risen, but you're not going to rise. That's his over for you. No resurrection for you. He's telling the king that. He's strengthened by the law. He's strengthened by the armor. And that's what they say, put on the armor of the Most High. That's the law.
That's right.
15.
Afterward, they brought the fifth also and mangled him.
Oh, man, they brought the fifth one and mangled him. What do you mean by mangled? Huh? They display him, probably just torture him, and he's all shaking and wiggling. Like, you grab a chicken and you're about to kill it, and it's all wiggling. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 16 to 17. Then looked he unto the king and said, Thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou doest what thou wilt. Yet think not that our nation is forsaken of the Most High.
He still have faith of the Most High. He believed that Israel will have salvation. Eventually. Go ahead.
But abide a while, and behold his great power, how he will torment thee and thy seed.
He let them know you're going to be tormented and your seed is going to be tormented. To my king. There's a young person telling the king this. Mm-hmm.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 18 to 19. After him also they brought forth the sixth.
They brought the sixth person. Six young men.
Who, being ready to die, said, Be not deceived with our cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God.
So now he's recognizing that, you know what? Go ahead, do what you must do, because you know what? We deserve it for the sins that we have committed. The sins of our fathers. They knew the importance. They understood why they was going through all of this. Because they was reading about our forefathers, how they fell off. The kings. The prophets. In order for you to know the sins you're committing, you have to check back the sins of our forefathers. How they break the law. Which law they broke to put us in this captivity. And this right here was mentioned during when? Daniel. During the end of Babylon captivity, going to the Persian Medes captivity, this prophecy of what's going to happen in Israel were cursed. So that's about 300 years later. So the Most High don't forget the sins that we committed. If we sin, we may not feel it at the moment, but it's going to creep up on you when you least expect it. That has not changed. But the reason why we're facing this captivity while we're in it right now is because of what they have done. Go ahead.
Therefore, marvelous things are done unto us. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against the Most High, that thou shalt escape unpunished.
Yeah, don't think you're going to be, you're not going to get punished. Even though you're punishing us for our sins, you're going to be punished too. The prophets talked about that. And these young men understood that. All right, go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 24.
This is funny.
Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, whilst the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths that he would make him both a rich and a happy man.
Now Antiochus is like, man, I'm torturing these kids, and they're talking back, and they're taking this debt so easy. But now I'm gonna go after this little one and just try to see if I can, bribe him something, because he went to him and said, "Yo, come on, listen, I don't want to keep killing people and killing you, so I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna give you riches, man, because you're the youngest. I'm starting to feel bad." Continue. He said, "I'm going to make you a rich and a happy man." Go ahead.
If you would turn from the laws of his
He
fathers,
would turn from the laws from his father.
and that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with affairs.
That means he's going to make him his friends and trust him with all affairs. So now he's bribing him. This young man, trying to get into his head because he's young. And, this thing happened to our young people today. You could have other people come and get into our young people's mind. But if they understand the law and string with the law, it's going to be hard for anybody to get into their head. That's why, we as parents, those who have children, as difficult as it may be, we have to tell our children these laws. Because when they go out there, they have other influences where people could get into their head. And it's a constant struggle. But not these young ox. Go ahead.
This is 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 27 and 28.
Okay, yeah.
But she bowing herself toward him,
Now
laughing,
the mother's bound herself to her son, the last one. Go ahead.
laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner: O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee such 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up into age, and endured the troubles of education.
So she's talking to the son who she nursed for 3 years, brought up to trouble education, because she knows the education that they were under this captivity, were wrong and they were off. The education that she gave them was from this book. Just like we are today. We have no choice but to send our children to go to the education of our captors. But at the same time, we got to start doing education in the home when it comes to the scriptures. Don't give them another book or other novel to read. Let the school do that. But we got to try to get them into this book. And this mother understood that. Go ahead.
I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, and consider that the Most High made of things that were not, and so was mankind made likewise.
Okay, read that again, man. 28.
I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth.
The mother is looking at her son, speaking to him, and he's looking up. Can you imagine that scene? Look into the heavens. Trust in the Most High. Go ahead.
And all that is therein. And consider that the Most High made them of things that were not. And so was mankind made likewise.
So, consider the Most High made things that didn't exist, that was not. So is mankind. Stay with the Most High. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 29 to 30. Fear not this tormentor,
Fear not this cruelty, this punishment.
but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy death, that I may receive thee again in mercy with thy brethren.
See that? She even believed that she's going to be with them. She's not lying. She's not making it up. Israel was so strong in their faith that they know under this captivity, as long as they stay with the law, when they die, they're going to be resurrected with the king to come. And that they will see each other. Go ahead.
While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, Whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment.
That's why he said, I'm not going to obey it. Come on, Ma. I'm not going to do that. Go ahead.
But I will obey the commandment of the law that was given unto our fathers by Moses.
Yeah, come on, Ma. I'm not going to obey what it says. I'm going to obey the law that our fathers had, the law of Moses. The youngest. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 31 to 33. And thou, that hast been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews, shall not escape the hands of the Most High, for we suffer because of our sins. And though the living Lord be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction, yet shall he be at one again with his servants.
Yeah, and it just came to mind. So, all of this was going on in a different city while the priest was defiling the temple. We got to keep in mind that this is just an example what was going on during that time. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 34 to 36. But thou, O godless man, and of all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of the Most High.
They tell me, don't puff yourself up. Don't think that you're doing justice, destroying the servants of the Most High. Because, when you're in the law, you are a servant to the Most High. Go ahead.
For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of the Almighty Power, who seeth all things. For our brethren, who now have suffered a short pain, are dead under the Most High's covenant of everlasting life. But thou, through the judgment of the Most High, shalt receive just punishment for thy pride.
Yeah, you'll be punished for your pride when you lift up yourself. Think you're above God's. When you're above our God. Go ahead.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 37-38. But I, as my brethren, offer up my body and life for the laws of our fathers, beseeching the Most High that he would speedily be merciful unto our nation, and that thou by torments and plagues mayest confess that he alone is the Most High.
Yeah, continue. Finish this last one.
And that in me and my brethren the wrath of the Almighty, which is justly brought upon our nation, may cease.
And it's good to read this because we know the prophecy that's coming, that can, behead us. We hear all the different things, FEMA camps, them taking away the Bible, all of this is coming. But the only way that we're going to strengthen our faith is if we stay within these laws.
All right.
Because they're going to convert your soul. And then when they do come, you'll be able to bear with it. You'll be able to stand up to it. Because if you know that you're going to be with Christ, then you're going to take the guillotine or whatever they're going to give.
I don't know how many know this, but Russia has already done this. You can't do Bible studies in your home. You can't do any street pick. You can't do anything. They already start banning all of that stuff. So it's just a matter of time.
And when that time come over here, and they say you can't go out street preaching, are we going to stop? Oh, all right. Put on that armor. See?
Wait,
so we're talking about. We're not going to stop.
I didn't hear the brothers. Just messing.
But, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No. Go back.
Oh, you didn't finish that one?
Wait.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verses 39 to 42. Then the king being in a rage, handed him worse than all the rest, and took it grievously that he was mocked.
Okay, so he just gave that young man the worst. Okay, this is Antiochus. This is the evil that came during this period. Go ahead.
So this man died undefiled and put his whole trust in the Lord.
That's right.
Last of all, after the sons, the mother died. Let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the adulterous feasts and the extreme tortures.
And you know, me, those young men, I believe it's going to be one of the 44. Because they died for the law. Didn't Christ said it? Those who are beheaded for me will rule with me. Most High is going to reward those young ox and the mother graciously. That's what I believe. All right.
Some real ox there, boy.
The brothers. They were the Maccabees family.
Brothers got to get your beards up.
The brothers. Now, while all of this been going on for years, right? The Maccabees were in a little small town. And remember when the Athenian elders was going to different cities forcing people to leave the law and turn their ways into the heathen ways, to be Hellenistic, change their names. So then they came across the Maccabees brothers, father and brothers. Okay? We already know who's the father and the brothers. Read 1 Maccabees 2.
Yep. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 1 to 6. In those days arose Matthias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, the priest of the sons of Jorib, from Jerusalem that dwelt in Modin.
So he was a priest. Not a high priest, but just one of the priests. Okay? From Modin, a little town in Jerusalem, in Israel. Go ahead.
And he had 5 sons, Jonan, called Cadiz.
See? They had to change their name.
Simon, called Thassi. Judas, who was called Maccabeus. Eleazar, called Abivaran. And Jonathan, whose surname was Ephes. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers?
So they know the strangers came and took the temple. This is the father, Matthias. Go ahead.
Her temple is become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
Okay, so he's talking about all the miseries that's been going on. Now they're in another town. So can you imagine everybody else hearing all of this? What's the mindset? What's the mentality? Go ahead.
What nation had not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? And all her ornaments are taken away.
All ornaments, all the riches taken away.
Of a free woman she's becoming a bondslave. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer? Then Matthias and his sons rent their clothes, and put on sackcloth, and mourned very sore.
So they were so upset, so hurt, so heated, so hot. He said rent their clothes. You know what they mean when you rent your clothes? I was having a conversation with somebody about renting their clothes. Anybody been in a situation where there was in a trouble situation and all of a sudden your body got hot? And all of a sudden you want to start, oh man, check my jacket, it's kind of hot in here. You want to know about the trouble that you in? That's how they felt. The body temperature started rising in them. What other reason why you're going to tear up your clothes? Go ahead.
First Maccabees 2:15-17.
Oh.
In the
Go ahead.
In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Israel came unto them, Matthias also had his sons came together.
Now here's a revolt about to happen. Go ahead.
Then answered the king's officers and said to Matthias on this wise, Thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthen his with sons and brethren. Now, therefore, come thou first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards.
So here's that again. Now they see Matthias and his brothers are very have a high standing in the community. So here comes the king's commander doing what? Offering him position of power, another bride. Since he got all these people with him, he said, yo, let's try to get him with us so then, we don't have to deal with all this revolt. But them brothers said,
Yep.
Go ahead.
Then Matthias answered and spake with a loud voice, Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
So he's going to stand up for the covenant of the Most High. He's not breaking the covenant. Go ahead.
Most High forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances.
God forbid. Go ahead.
We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment.
So he's over here telling them, no, we're going to stand up for the Most High law. Here comes this guy. I don't even know if he's a priest or what. Just walking by everything to do a sacrifice. Matthias must have been looking at him like, what's this guy doing, man? Don't you see a pig on the altar? Where you going? He's just walking along. Yeah, do my sacrifice. Go ahead.
Which thing when Matthias saw, he was inflamed with zeal.
Oh, man, he was mad.
And his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to the judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
Man, he wanted to kill that ox on the altar. Okay? This is where you're going to go defiled. This is where you're going to die. Yeah. But that was bravery. I mean, he felt the zeal to the point that I don't think he even knew that he was doing it.
Zeal for the Lord.
Yeah. He probably after he did say, oh my goodness, I just committed murder. But I'm sure the Most High were gracious. Because back then, if you defiled the temple, the Most High said, kill them. That's what he was doing. Yeah, the Bible said thou shalt not commit murder. But if you're going against the Most High law and you forcing others, then you got to step up for the Most High.
Also, the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down.
Yeah.
Thus dealt he zealously for the law of the Most High, like Phinehas did unto the Zambri, the son of Salem.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that story, right?
Hey, remember that? Is that
when he came with the Midianitish
when
woman?
he came with the Midian wife, and
He ran them through.
Phinehas just came with a javelin, a knife, and just
Javelin. Yep.
started killing them. So he remembered that. He remembered that precept. Go ahead.
And Matthias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city.
So they fled into the mountains, okay? Because they knew that they were at war now. So they had to go into the wilderness. Israel, every time we're in trouble, we run to the wilderness. That's where we can collect ourselves.
Nature.
That's where we can sanctify ourselves. We can't do it in the city because the city is too defiled. What do you think John the Baptist stayed in the wilderness? He couldn't be in the city. Christ was in the wilderness for 40 days, sanctifying himself. So they knew they had to do that. Israel uprise. It's kind of hard to find pictures, but you know, got these Israelite brothers. Go ahead.
Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel.
Oh, so there's a group of Israelites now that also felt the same way. Mighty men.
Probably Benjamin.
They're probably Benjamin, I was about to say that.
Even as all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also, all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them and were stay unto them.
So there was a group too, to avoid persecution, went and joined them. So now you can see the Spirit of the Most High coming in. Regardless what you see, the Spirit of the Most High is there.
So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for succor.
So they started killing their own Israelite brothers who were sinful, who was partaking in the heathen ways. Now the Maccabees brothers' troop was growing.
Then Matthias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. And what children soever they found within the coasts of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly.
Can you imagine? So they went around all different cities, grabbing little youth. Hey, let me check the seat. What? Boom. Circumcised. Regardless. I don't care if your mom behind you, your dad, that's it. They wasn't playing. Can you imagine? Probably picked up a sharp stone and just cut them up like, you know, Moses had to do his sons. Go ahead.
They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand.
No, hold on, where you at? I'm in the same place? I pressed by accident. Yeah, go forward.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Death of Matthias. 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 49 and 50. Now when the time drew near that Matthias should die, he said unto his sons, Now hath pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction, and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers.
Okay, so now Matthias is in his, deathbed. So they've been warring for a few years now. This is not an overnight type of thing. And remember, the high priest right now during this time is still Melanius. Okay, his position have not changed. But if you continue on from 51 to 70, this is when he started giving the blessings to his sons. The same as Jacob did with his sons. Okay? And, whenever the father going to pass, you have your sons, even daughters, you got to bless them. Bless them with a kiss. Bless them with an anointment. So they understood that, and they practiced that. So he died. Then, there was Judas Maccabeus. Okay? I mean, his picture, his eyes, like he ready for war. That's why I chose this picture. But Judas Maccabeus was a Levite, son of a priest. He wasn't a soldier or, but I believe the Spirit of the Most High wanted him to give him that soldier and warrior type of spirit. We're going to go into his characteristic and character.
First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1 to 3. Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him. And so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel. So he gat his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him. And he made battles, protecting the host with his sword. In his acts he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey.
See, he was like a lion. You got to take Judas' position for a minute. Okay? Because the priesthood had to be dealt with. Go ahead.
For he pursued the wicked, and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed his people.
So he started burning heathens all over the city. He wanted to get them out.
Burned them.
It's time to clean the city. Go ahead.
Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because salvation prospered in his hand.
He got salvation.
He grieved also many kings, and made Jacob glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever.
So all the kings was hearing about him. They're like, oh man, you got one ox, man, that's just making things difficult for us. They're messing with our money. And the rest of Israel, they're feeling inspired, joyful. Somebody standing up. Go ahead.
Moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish.
Go ahead.
Then Apollonius.
Now, remember Apollonius? He was the one that was conspiring with who? He was a commander that was conspiring with, from earlier, Menelaus. Yeah, that's Apollonius. See, he came back now. He's like, what? He's probably in the temple doing whatever he do. And then we heard about Judas. He's like, wait a minute, what? Let me go over there and see what's going on with this guy. So what did he do?
Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together in a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel.
So he went to Samaria and when it got some host. Why he go there? He gathered the Gentiles and then in a great host out of Samaria. Why he went to Samaria? It's no secret that there's bad blood between Samaritan and Israel. So he went to get Israel's enemy to fight with him. Because they knew Israel. He doesn't know Israel, so he had to use his own people. There you go again. The heathen using our people against each other. That has not changed. Go ahead.
Which thing when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him. And so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled.
See that? Judas came, met him, and what? And killed him. Apollonius. See how it worked out? From the beginning, Apollonius was conspiring with Menelaus. But here comes Judas. Smote him. Go ahead.
Wherefore Judas took their spoils, and Apollonius' sword also.
Took his sword.
And therewith he fought all his life long.
So that means Judas Maccabeus was fighting almost forever. So it didn't end. We would think that this ended, but it didn't end. Because then other nations were gathering themselves together. I mean, when you continue on, you will see that. That's why I said if you like the politics, if you're into politics, you continue reading first book of Maccabees, and it's going to go more into the political. Judas Maccabees got involved in the political aspects also. Okay, go ahead.
Now, when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation.
Now, King Antiochus is hearing about this.
Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army.
So now King Antiochus, he was more powerful than Apollonius. So he went and got more forces against who? Some little Maccabees and his crew. This is like another David and Goliath. Go ahead.
He opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them.
Now see that now? All the money he took, he's going to have to go spend it to try to take down the Maccabees. See that? That's the Most High working. Because you think sometimes if you're going to, sometimes in life, when you steal money from somebody, you think you're going to spend and be joyful? What Most High does? He make you spend that same money you took more. That's what's happening. It happens. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed and that the tributes in the country were small.
The money was getting small now. You keep paying for all that war. The money took from us. I mean, you're paying soldiers for a whole year. And they're still going to run. I'll do 1 month on the battlefield. Say, I'm out. I got my money. I'm gone. Go ahead.
Because of the dissension and plague, which he had brought upon the land and taken away the laws which had been of old time.
Oh, man, plague is coming on the land. Where's that coming from? Go ahead.
He feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before, for he had abounded above the kings that were before him.
See that? So all his money is going. You want to get all the rest of the forces from Asia Minor, from Athens and all that, you got to dish out that money. Now you have none. Now you lose power. And that's a good thing about this book of Maccabees. It teaches about money also. Go ahead.
Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries and to gather much money.
So he's like confused. Like, man, I'm losing money, man. Let me go back to Persia. Let me go back to where it started. Persia, you got some of that money that Alexander took from you. I need it. Persia's like, yo, we spend it on clothing or something like that. We don't have it. Go ahead.
So he left Lysias, a nobleman, and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt.
So he just leave another man to deal with this situation while he try to gather the money. He's not ready to go against Maccabees. He's the financer, so he got to go get money in order to take back the stronghold that the Maccabees took. So he leaves this guy here, Lysias. I wonder how he's feeling. Go ahead.
The strangers
in the land.
It's 1 Maccabees chapter 4, 20 to 22. Who, when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to fight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done.
So these strangers in the land, they're seeing the Jews just like, yo, man, they're burning tents, they're killing people, we're over here. What we supposed to do? They probably was in hiding. They're going to come and kill us. Strangers, not Israelites. Those who came from Greek that came and in part in the gymnastics and all the gymnasium and all the Hellenistic affairs and fashion, they came down. They was like, whoa, things are popping in Jerusalem. Now they're in the middle of a war. Go ahead.
When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seen also the hosts of Judas in the plain ready to fight. They fled every one into the land of strangers.
So they fled. They had to go. They went to other land, other strange lands.
Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold, and silver, and blue silk, and purple of the sea, and great riches.
Man, you see all the riches these strangers had? They abandoned their riches. Maybe it was the gold was probably too heavy for them to travel, so they had to leave it in their tents. Go ahead.
After this, they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven because it is good, because his mercy endureth forever.
So, they still know the Most High. The Spirit of the Most High was with them. Okay? The Most High was giving them power to overcome their enemies. They didn't need a prophet at that time. They didn't have none. But because of the zeal for the law, because of the armor they put on, they gave the praises to the Most High. Because the Most High gave them that. Go ahead.
Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day.
Oh, Israel was happy.
Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened, who, when he heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he would done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass.
No, but he sounds shocked now. What were you all this time, Ak? He must not hearing about what Maccabees was doing. Now he said, who? Because remember, Antiochus left him in charge. So now he's like, man, I got to go deal with them now? Oh, man. He probably got paid for a year too. Go ahead.
First Maccabees chapter 4, 28 to 29. The next year thereof, fallen Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot.
70,000.
And 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura. And Judas met them with 10,000 men.
Okay, see, Judas had 10,000 men. They had 5,000 horsemen. And they had 3 scores. Score is 21. That's what? 60,000. That's 60,000 plus 5. That's what? 65,000. Maccabees only had what? 10,000. Don't tell me the Most High wasn't with them. Go ahead.
And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest a host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor-bearer. Shut up his army in the hand of thy people, Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined battle, and they were slain of the host of Lysias, about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain.
So you can see the Spirit of the Most High was with them. They knew about to go to war with all these men. But what Maccabees did, he called upon the Most High. Then what?
Now, when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers.
So you see that? His army, they just took off. They got paid for a year and they just took off. But you were 65,000. I don't think they touched not one ox out of 10,000. Because if you feel like the other team, the other army forces are dwindling down, then you will raise your spirit. Okay, we got some of them. But if you see none of them is falling and your men is falling, then you know it's time to go. And that's what they did. Go ahead.
And how they were ready either to live or die violently. He went into Antiochia and gathered together a company of strangers. And having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion.
So now, a lot of our captors' army had to go in, reorganize themselves. They had to flee. So now Judas Maccabees, they went to the temple. And they saw the condition of the temple. This is a 3-year battle. Imagine what the temple looked like. All type of blood stains and defiled things. So you know the Most High was nowhere near this temple. Go ahead.
And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest.
See that? I mean, inside parts of the temple, it was like trees and bushes going through the rocks. How long does that take for it to happen? Years. So that means that temple was desolate for years. Go ahead.
Or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down. They rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried toward heaven.
Oh, man, so they were disappointed. They had to blow a trumpet to get everybody to feel what they feel when they saw that temple. This is all in Israel. Go ahead.
Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress, until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place.
So he chose priests to clean the temple, because only the priests can touch the temple in certain areas. And then also, they still have men in fortresses, because, you know, also during that time, they started building fortresses around the temple. So they were hiding. But Maccabees found them, kill them off. Go ahead.
And when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profaned, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to shew them what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former.
So they're waiting for that prophet to come, because they knew there was no prophet around. They were on their own. Go ahead.
And made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hallowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick.
You know, it's just like every time, Israel always got to put that temple back together, because Israel needed that temple. That was their heart. That was their lifeline. Go ahead.
And the altar of burnt offerings, and of incense, and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, and that they might give light in the temple.
Okay, so in all of this, what happened to Menelaus, the high priest? In all of this, he jetted out. He went with Antiochus, but that's in a different lesson. That's when we're going to talk about the Roman captivity, because they're in connection. But he was the so-called high priest there. Go ahead.
Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the Most High of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and the sacrifice of deliverance and praise.
Oh, okay. That was the Feast of Dedication. That's what we're going to be commemorating tomorrow. All right? See the Most High praise. I just hope that this understanding put a picture in our minds that what had occurred during the invasion before Christ came. So Christ had to come now. Even though they cleansed the temple, but what do you think happened? What do you think was the mindset of Israel afterwards? There was a lot of despair. They had brothers that didn't trust each other no more. To the point where we didn't trust each other, we started hating each other. So now Christ had to come with the spirit of the law. Okay? this was the perfect timing for him to come. But that's all, you know. Again, let's give the Most High praise. Are we taking questions now? Yeah, questions, okay. We're going to take questions. Let all your questions be pertaining to this topic. Okay? That's what I prefer because, you know, my mind is on this zone right now. All right? So if anybody got any questions, and, you know, anybody else feel free to answer any questions. Well, you guys have no questions? Everything was just on point? Huh? Oh. There you go, Michelangelo.
Hello? So, can we go into a deeper study into what those Grecian customs were? Because, you know, I have my own beliefs on what these Grecian customs were as far as the hats, certain practices and exercises that, you know, our people were wickedly doing. So I think we should go into what these practices were so we have a deeper understanding on how to separate ourselves, you know, further today.
Oh, okay. So you're asking what are some of the custom of the Greeks were and how we're doing it today. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I have an idea of what some of them were. So as far as like the hats, I'm thinking those were fitteds. You had a brim in the front and a brim in the back, and they use this in a way to bring an allegiance to their Roman festivities.
Oh, okay.
And also you know, gymnasiums and whatnot. So I was going to say we gotta use wisdom when it comes to doing certain things, as far as, you know, trying to stay fit and whatnot, but also stay set apart.
Yeah, you're on point with that, because the Olympics and all that stuff, they all started, well, as you can see, it was with the Romans, the Greeks, and they were all nude. And, you know, you understand when they were hiding the circumcision was that when the law came back into place, the foreskin had to be cut further back. That's why they were doing the hiding of the foreskin. The foreskin isn't supposed to be cut all the way back, but because they were going off, that's what had to be done. And then as far as the gymnasium, if you go to the gyms today, you can see the similar, they can't work out naked, but you see how the girls, they get pretty bare in the gym, and brothers too. So there's still that spirit that's been all the way down, that's still on the gym and the Olympics and all that stuff. There's a lot of similarities, but it's all distractions against the Most High. So,
yeah, that's why sometimes it's, you know, better to just invest in workouts for your, you know, your own home. You know what I mean? So you won't be around all of that, you know, distractions. You know, but in Israel, we got to stay fit. You know what I mean? Because, you know, this is a war. You know, we got our own brothers that we got to worry about that don't know the truth. You know. Okay. Yes, Jenny.
Pretty loud, sorry. My question is, how did we use the temple to get closer to the Most High? Like, I know that we did sacrifices, and I know that the Ark of the Covenant was there. And I guess my question would be, how did we use the Ark of the Covenant as well?
How did we use the Ark of the Covenant?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you go back to back into the days of Moses, the covenant was, you know, was our power. Okay? And only the Levites can carry and touch the covenant. Okay. Also, if you can remember that when the Philistines stole the covenant and they put it in their temple and then they put their gods, whatever that was, and the next morning that thing was in pieces. Doggone, yeah. They didn't know how it happened. It's like, and then next thing you know, the whole city was plagued. Okay? Because they were not allowed to touch the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? That was something that was given to Israel by the Most High. So anybody, including some Israelites, were not able to come near the Ark of the Covenant.
So to clarify, did we use the Ark of the Covenant to speak directly with the Most High?
No, we had our prophets to speak directly to the Most High, and then also the temple when we was doing sacrifices at that time. Okay? But then the Ark of the Covenant always stayed within the temple, the Most High's house. But then when Jeremiah knew that Babylon was coming, he moved it. He took it and hid it. You sure?
Yeah, thank you.
Like the brother said, Dagon is still worshipped today in the Catholic Church. That's who the Pope and all of them, the symbol with their hats and all that, they still worship. They still affiliated with that fallen god.
Shalom, brothers and sisters, family. I have a question, but I'm gonna just, if it's all right with you, just to like quickly add on to what Jenny said. One thing, Jenny, with the Ark of the Covenant, you gotta remember, like, it was the exact similitude of the heavens. So when you go into like the cherubims and seraphims and all of that, it was like our power. Like we had a heavenly figure in our possession to the T. The only thing like that was the holies of holies, and that's the reason why it had that much power. So it just being in our possession was our power, and that's what the officer was getting into with Dagon. When another nation had it, it destroyed their whole city. But the question that I had is Second Maccabees. My fault. Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 29, and it says, "Now Menelaus left his brother Lysimachus in his stead in the priesthood." So it's not too deep. It's just, when Alexander split his kingdom amongst the 4 generals, one of them was Lysimachus. So I was just wondering, was those 2 different Lysimachus?
Yes.
That's all my question was. Khan, the water.
Because a lot of our people was taking on the names of their oppressors, their conquerors. You know what I mean? So it's 2 different ones.
All right, all praises.
But the Roman captivity go more into detail about him. That's why I left it out. But okay.
Shalom, brothers. I just want to add what the sister was saying about the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is just a place where we have our documents. That was the covenant the Moses made with us. So after Moses got the covenant, he put it in the Ark. The Moses has it to build it. So it's like a covenant thing that the Moses made. Only Israel allowed to touch that, no other nation.
I just want to know what is the purpose of it, what's the significance
Of
the
what?
Ark of the Covenant, what it stands for.
The purpose of the Ark of the Covenant? Well,
Yes.
like you said, it kept a lot of our records that was given by the Most High. It kept the tablets that was written by the hands of the Most High. Okay, and like the brother said, that's like having the cherubims down with you. It's a powerful thing. Without it, Israel cannot defeat the other nations that they went to war with. Okay, so it have a very strong significance to the point where scientists today are very curious about it. They think they have found it, but they really haven't found it.
So would you say it's a method of communication with God?
Yes, because the Most High Word is in there. So if you read His Word, the Most High is communicating with you. So yeah. Anybody want to add to what the sister said? Action?
In 2 Maccabees chapter 2, if I could read it for us, it's like 7 verses. It talks about how the Ark of the Covenant was taken by Jeremiah, bringing to the mountain where Moses was given the laws, and locked away in a cave where no one could find it. So, and it also says that in the last days when Christ comes and gathers all his people, I'm thinking we go back into the wilderness, we are going to go to the same mountain to receive that ark, and then therefore conquer the nations with Yeshua.
Okay, I
with
believe
the Ark
that.
of the Covenant.
I mean, we are going to need the Ark of the Covenant when we go back into the wilderness. That's when the Most High said He's going to plead with us face to face. So believe that Ark of the Covenant is going to be there.
Yeah, so I got the chance to read 2 Maccabees chapter 2.
Yeah, it goes more to Jeremiah. Thanks for that, Ark. The brother behind Yeah.
I was just wondering how it is the Ethiopians have come to lead everybody to believe that they had the Ark of the Covenant. If you know anything about that, if anybody can share.
Say it again. How what?
The Ethiopians are claiming to have the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, listen, this is what I believe. I believe there's a lot of replicas out there. Okay? So that's probably what they have. They probably have a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. Because if they had the real Ark of the Covenant, they wouldn't be in the situation they are today. So that's not the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, anybody else? Because people are doing that. People are creating replicas so they can say, oh, we found the Ark of the Covenant. Then they're going to bring it in a museum. And then they're going to start charging people to come see something that really is not theirs, that really is fabricated. Okay, anybody else? Good? Okay, so anybody here for the first time? Anyone? Okay, everybody been here before. Praise the Most High. Oh, you're here for the first time. Okay. Go ahead, tell us who you are, why you're here.
My name is Sister Brianna, and I just congregate with the body in upstate New York, and I'm just here to be with you guys for the Feast of Dedication.
All right, so that's good. With Jenny, right? Yo, cool. All right, praise the Most High. Yeah, they with them.
I deal with upstate.
She's with the college. She's with the college.
Yeah. She did. Okay. She goes to college upstate.
Sister Grace.
First time?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Sister Grace, and I'm here for the same thing.
Oh, okay. From the college of faith. Okay, praise the Most High.
I didn't want to repeat you.
Where are you from?
Syracuse, New York.
From where?
Upstate Syracuse, New York.
Yeah, okay, good,
You live
man.
in Syracuse?
What's that?
Do you live in Syracuse?
I do.
Okay. All right. Well, we have an upstate body we're trying to, so I'll get you info at.
Definitely.
Man, it's always good to see Brother Shaw and Jenny and people from, upstate New York to come down during that feast days because we know it's a long travel. When you guys are here, it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing, Praise the Most High. Okay, all right, High Priest.
No, there's only one. There's only one of those. Definitely not me. Praise to the Most High. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you online, the water. Any questions, feel free to forward it to the email, guccnyc@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you was tuned in with the brothers from the Gathering of Christ Church, New York. We'll see you tomorrow on the stream. We're going to be streaming from the new GOCC New Jersey channel, so we don't bump heads with Elder Ricard, who's going to be using the GOCC NYC channel, for those of you who don't know. So spread the word. The New York body is going to be streaming from the GOCC New Jersey channel. So Shabbat Shalom. Happy Feast of Dedication. Barak Atham.